morning, children. Welcome again in biology class. Today again we'll continue chapter breathing and exchange of gases. And today we'll be going to learn about the human respiratory system. Humans have pulmonary respiration, and the system includes a long respiratory tract and respiratory organs or lungs. So what is a respiratory tract? Now this respiratory tract is a passage through which deeply placed lungs they are connected with the atmosphere, and the fresh air from the atmosphere enters into the lungs, and the air from the body or the carbon dioxide from the body comes out into the atmosphere through these lungs. It is a conducting part of respiratory system and consists of a pair of nostrils, nasal cavity, internal nares, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, and bronchioles. So let's move on. The first part of respiratory tract. Nostrils are the external nares, which are two in numbers, and they are present at the lower end of the nose, just above the upper lip. Now they open into the nasal chambers of the nasal cavity. The nasal cavity lies roof of the above the buccal cavity between cranium and palate, and this nasal cavity it is divided into nasal chambers by a cartilaginous vertical nasal septum. Now this nasal cavity it can be again divided into three regions: the lower vestibular, middle respiratory, and upper olfactory. So this is a section of a human head showing the respiratory tract. See children, this is the nostril part. Now this nostril or the nasal cavity it is divided into nasal vestibular, then this is the respiratory part and the olfactory part. Then voila, then the pharynx part which is divided into three: nasopharynx, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx. Now this laryngopharynx it is the common opening for the air and the food. Now hide bone, then epiglottis which is the opening. Now vocal cords, then thyroid cartilage, and this is the esophagus pipe. Now the vestibular region or the nasal vestibule, it is the anterior part of the nasal cavity which bears the coarse air. These here they act as filter and trap dust particles from the incoming air. The surface also bears oil glands and the sweat glands. The respiratory region or the conditioner, it is the middle region of the nasal cavity which is lined by respiratory epithelium. It consists of pseudostratified columnar epithelium cells with two types of gland cells: the goblet cells which secrete viscid fluid called mucus, and the serous cells which produce watery fluid. Now the respiratory epithelium it is highly vascular and appears pink or reddish in color. Now the three shallow bony ridges called nasal conchae or turbinals arise from the wall of each respiratory chamber. Now these are superior conchae or the nasoturbinals, middle conchae or ethmoturbinal, and inferior conchae or the maxilloturbinals. Now these are covered with mucous membranes and they increase the surface area of nasal chambers. Now the respiratory region it acts as an air conditioner and filtering unit, and the air passing through these becomes moist, warm, and filtered. After that comes the olfactory region, which is the upper region of the nasal cavity, and it is lined with olfactory epithelium which contains sensory cells for detecting odor of inspired air. Now all the inner surfaces of nasal passage they are lined with thin and moist mucous membrane, and its cells are ciliated and secrete mucus into the nasal cavity. The mucous membrane of ethmoturbinal region is sensory epithelium, and it is called Schneiderian membrane. Now its cells are olfactory in nature. So let's come to the functions of the nasal passage. Now this nasal passage is the passage for air through which air go in and out of the lungs. It also helps in filtration because it removes large size bacteria, spores and dust particles from the inhaled air. Now it also do the cleaning process. The cilia of nasal epithelium, they vibrate and keep nasal passage clean. They also warm the air because they act as air conditioner. The mucus and rich blood supply to nasal passages warm or cool the inhaled air and bring it to body temperature before it enters into the lungs. It also makes the air moist. Now the olfactory receptor of the Naderian membrane, they detect different smells. They also do the process of sterilization. Groups of adenoid cells of pharyngeal tonsils, they kill bacteria. They are removed by the mucus, lysosomes, lactoferrin, and immunoglobulin, which are present in the secretion of serous glands and kill microbes of the inspired air. Cilia of nasoepithelial cells, they continuously beat towards the nasopharynx and they move the mucus and trap dust particles toward pharynx. Now internal nares, they open behind into the nasopharynx by internal nares. Now next is after internal nares the pharynx, which is a vertical tube and it is 12 centimeter long and located behind buccal cavity. Now the air and the cool and the passage, they cross each other here. Now it has three parts: nasopharynx, which forms the upper part of the pharynx. Internal nares opens into this nasopharynx. Then comes the oropharynx, which is the middle part, which receives the opening of buccal cavity. After that is the laryngopharynx, which is the lower part of pharynx. Now it is also the common passage for food and air. Gullet is at the back and glottis lies in front. Now larynx or the voice box, which is the upper part of trachea and it is responsible for producing voice. Now it is formed of 4 cartilages, 2 sets of muscles and 2 pairs of vocal cords. The length and tension of vocal cords is maintained by the intrinsic muscles which controls the opening and closing of glottis. The vibrations of vocal cords produce voice. The thyroid cartilage of larynx forms Adam's apple. After larynx comes the trachea, which is also known as windpipe. Now it is about 11 centimeter long and 2.5 centimeter wide. It extends from larynx in the neck to bronchi in the thoracic cavity, and it lies ventral to the esophagus. Its walls, they are supported by cartilaginous rings which are C-shaped. Now these rings, they protect the trachea by collapsing. The trachea, it is lined with glandular and ciliated pseudostratified columnar epithelium. The mucus secreted by mucus glands keeps tracheal wall moist to trap dust particles from the inhaled air. The beating of cilia pushes the mucus upwards up to the throat to be spitted out. Now after that comes the bronchi and the bronchioles. Now when the trachea enters into the thoracic cavity, it divides into 2 primary bronchi. Now the right bronchus, it is slightly larger in size. Now this is the bronchial tree. Now here is the trachea, which is divided into left and the right bronchus. Left primary bronchus, then secondary bronchus. These are the tertiary bronchus. Then terminal bronchus, which are devoid of the cartilaginous rings. They don't have cartilaginous rings. Then lobular bronchiole, then again terminal bronchiole. Then respiratory bronchiole, and alveolar duct, and alveolar sac, and alveolus. So, now this prime bronchus, they enters the lungs of its side and immediately divides into secondary and tertiary or segmental bronchi. Now these branch into bronchioles, terminal bronchioles, and then into respiratory bronchioles. Now bronchus with its branches is described as a bronchial tree. Now it consists of primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi, bronchioles, lobular bronchioles, after that terminal bronchioles and terminal bronchioles, and respiratory bronchioles. So this is all about the respiratory tract, children. In our next class, we'll learn about the respiratory organ, lungs. Till then, thank you and have a nice day.